The summer sun burned low over Blackwater Bay, bathing the red keep in molten gold and crimson shadows. King Robert Baratheon, freshly healed yet still bearing the stiffness of mended ribs and a puckered scar below his left nipple where the boar's tusk had entered, stood upon the western parapet of Maegor's Holdfast. Wind teased his once coal hair, now threaded with iron, and he drank the late light greedily, as if each ember of sky were a gulp of arbor gold. In his broad palm the king balanced a goblet he had not yet touched, unwilling to taste wine that might dull the new, keen edge upon his mind. Survival, he had discovered, whetted the senses like a whetstone grinds a blade. Footsteps echoed behind him. Ser Barristan Selmy, white cloak trailing, bowed his snowy head. "Your Grace, the hand awaits inside the solar." "Ned's always waiting," Robert growled, though a subtle smile bent beneath his beard. "Lead on, Ser Barristan, and keep that damned eunuch from eavesdropping." They strode through vaulted corridors, past counting stewards and gold-cloaked guards, until the oaken doors of the solar swung wide. The chamber smelled of beeswax and parchment. Lord Eddard Stark's gray eyes lifted from scrolls arrayed upon the table. Maps of Westeros, letters sealed and broken. A single missive penned in a slanted golden hand. Cersei's. Robert collapsed into a chair opposite the hand. "Tell me again," he said, voice low. Slowly, Ned's face was carved ice. "Your queen has sailed from King's Landing at dawn. 6 Lannister ships escort her to Lannisport. She carries the children and 20 household knights." Robert exhaled. "Ex-queen." The word tasted like strange fruit, bittersweet. Ned agreed. "Your Edict of Exile names her Lady of Casterly Rock and forbids her return upon pain of death. The small council recorded it at first light, each man's seal impressed." The king leaned forward, elbows upon the table, great shoulders filling the lamplight. "And Tywin?" Silent. Ned tapped a knuckle atop the slanted letter. "No reply yet. Ravens fly to every holdfast west of the Golden Tooth. But the rock's windows remain dark." Robert's laugh was short. "Old Lion bears his claws by staying quiet. He'll count swords, fetch debts, sniff the wind. Let him. The 7 know he has coin to burn and men to spare. Yet he's no fool. He will weigh rebellion against ruin." Ned smoothed a corner of parchment. "You must still name an heir till Joffrey's parentage is judged. The realm bears uneasy rumors." "Rumors you seeded," Robert said, though without rancor. "Yet you were right. Gods help me. I drank, whored, hunted, and left my throne to rot while lions crept beneath my roof. Never again." Ned inclined his head. Outside, gulls cried beyond arrow slits. The king's hand drifted to his chest, feeling scar tissue. "Eddard," he muttered, "I want a council of war, but quiet as cat feet. Renly preens in the yard like a green boy smelling roses. Stannis sulks at Dragonstone, counting slighted honors. I'll need them both, yet neither must smell weakness." "They will, unless you move swifter than whispers," Ned warned. "Call Stannis home, grant him command of the royal fleet, and his loyalty will harden like winter ice. As for Renly, give him praise and a post to match his vanity. Master of laws, perhaps. A nest of vipers, these Baratheons," Robert chuckled. His fingers finally curled around the goblet. He drank deep water, not wine, and slammed it down. "Tonight I feast with the city. No more mourning pretenses. Let songs ring of a boar slain and a king reborn. Tomorrow we ride the streets, prove to every peddler and priest that Robert still reigns." Ned's eyes flicked toward the letter again. "Cersei may rouse Tywin to march. Then let him march," Robert rumbled. "The Crownlands will rise to meet him, and Storm's End besides. I've warred against Rhaegar and Greyjoy both. I'll not flinch before a lion grown fat on gold." Ned said nothing, remembering ash swirls over Dragonstone, the cries of dying men at Pike. The Northman's gaze drifted to the window where dusk bled violet across the sky. War, he feared, would not be so simple this time. Lilac dusk cloaked the streets when the king descended into the capital. Bells pealed from distant septs, and fishmongers lit torches along the muddy way. Robert rode before a compact honor guard, Barristan, Ned, Ser Jaime Lannister uncomfortably gold among white cloaks, and a double file of warriors festooned in stag-antlered helms. Crowds thickened, cheering at first tentative, then wild. "Robert! Robert! Gods bless the king!" Children waved scraps of cloth dyed Baratheon yellow. Women threw posies that bounced from shining helms. At the Street of Flower, a crone lifted a child upon thin shoulders. The boy's hair shone bright gold. His mother, that crone's daughter, perhaps sighed, "Sweet Prince our Joffrey," and Ned's stomach twisted. The king heard, too. His knuckles whitened upon the reins. But Robert raised a hand in benediction, and the crowd roared louder. The procession wound past the great September of Baelor, whose milk-white visage glimmered under torchlight. Septons swung censers of pungent smoke. Ned glimpsed Grand Maester Pycelle upon the marble steps, sparse beard fluttering. The old man bowed deeply, but his eyes followed Ser Jaime, not the king. At last the courtyard of the Red Keep embraced them. Servants piled in rows, candles throwing trembling halos. Queenless banners draped the walls, Baratheon and the crowned stag alone. Robert dismounted, wincing at the bruise of old wounds. He passed his reins to a groom, shrugged off Barristan's offered arm, and strode toward the hall. Inside, tapestries glowed with warm lamplight. Aegon's Landing, the Field of Fire, the Dance of Dragons. Long trestle boards groaned beneath trenchers of roast goat, capons stuffed with dates, a mighty aurochs slathered in honey glaze. Musicians plucked lutes, flutes trilled like skylarks. Robert raised his voice and the hall stilled. "My good people," he thundered, arms wide. "Your king stands." A roar answered, "I live, and while I drew breath upon that bloody field, I saw the mother's mercy. I have erred. I, drunk too deep and hunted too wild, but no more. Tonight we begin anew. Eat, drink, sing, and tomorrow Westeros will know her king's voice again." Cheers battered the rafters. Wine splashed, boars' heads carried aloft. Robert clasped Ned's shoulder, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Brother," he said, though they shared no blood, "stand beside me till the realm is safe." "Always," Ned replied. Yet as minstrels struck a triumphant chord, Ned Stark heard another note beneath, the distant rumble of war drums gathering. In the Tower of the Hand, shadows stretched long upon carved weirwood panels. Catelyn Stark paced, silent feet stirring rushes. She had come south in secret once Robert's survival had reached her by raven. Now she lingered, anxious as any mother hen parted from nest. Outside, the feast's laughter swelled and ebbed like surf. Inside, only the soft rasp of her gown broke the hush. The door opened. Ned stepped within, fatigue painted upon bone. Catelyn crossed swiftly. "You have eaten?" she asked. "Some." His voice carried quiet thunder. He closed the door, barring revel noise. "The court feasts yet, but my spirit finds little cheer." She brushed hair from his brow. "Robert thrives. Surely that is good." "Aye, but exile is not the end of Cersei's venom. Tywin will not leave insult unanswered, and the king trusts he can quiet the realm with a hunting horn and a jest." Catelyn led him toward the hearth. Beside the embers sat a small oaken chest banded in iron. Ned sank onto a cushioned bench. Cat knelt, lifting the lid. Inside, bundled by Maester's knots, lay parchment bearing the direwolf sigil. "Letters from Winterfell," she said softly. "Bran writes of dreams, Arya of sword lessons. Rickon sends a drawing of his wolf." Ned's stern face gentled. He took Bran's letter, tracing the boy's crooked script. "My children grow while I squabble with lions." He folded it away. "Yet if I do not stand here, there may be no safe realm for them to inherit." Catelyn gripped his hands. "We stand together, my lord. Winterfell endures, but promise me caution." "I promise," he whispered, though dread coiled in his breast. He felt the weight of secrets, of lineage and honor, and the coil tightened. A week after the feast, a raven flew from Casterly Rock bearing Tywin Lannister's reply. Varys delivered it in person, gliding through council doors like a pale moth. "Lord Tywin's words, your grace," spoke the eunuch, fanning himself with a perfumed feather. He presented the parchment. Robert broke the red wax, 3 lions rampant, and read. Lines deepened on his brow. "He calls my exile of Cersei an affront to all ancient rights," Robert grunted. "He demands a council of great lords to judge the queen's innocence." Renly snorted. "Innocence? Cersei manipulates innocence like a mummer wields masks." He lounged, green and gold doublet gleaming. Littlefinger smiled thinly. "Lord Tywin plays the Game of Thrones with a long blade, my lords. He sheathes it in courtesy while sharpening the edge." "Enough," Ned barked. Eyes flitted to Robert. "The letter." Robert crushed parchment in meaty fist. "He writes that should I refuse, the Westerlands will withdraw all trade from the crown. Gold cloaks go unpaid without Lannister coin, he claims." Renly's eyes widened. "Brazen," Pycelle wheezed, beard trembling. "My king, the realm's debts are the realm's, not Tywin's," Robert snapped. 7 hells. The Reach fattens 3 harvests worth of grain every year. The narrow sea carries trade enough to stuff every coffer north and south. "I'll not dance to Tywin's lute." Littlefinger's lips twitched. "Then, sire, we must replace his coin swiftly, else the small folk will feel famine of silver, not bread." Robert's glare dared defiance. "I will not plead to the Iron Bank like some silk-fingered fool. We'll reach out to the Stormlands, my brother Steward's copper still, and to the free cities hungry for Westerosi trade." Ned cleared his throat. "First, your grace, name an heir. The great houses will judge justice by the line you protect." The table stilled. Robert's gaze shifted, heavy as a warhammer, from face to face. Varys, Littlefinger, Pycelle, Renly, Ned. Jaime Lannister stood at the rear, eyes molten gold. "My bastards are bastards," Robert said at last. "And Stannis, though cold as winter's breath, is true steel. If Tywin's brood are illegitimate—" "They are," Ned said quietly. "Then Stannis Baratheon is rightful heir," Robert declared. "Send ravens to Dragonstone. Summon him. And with them, my apology for all past slights." Littlefinger's brows arched. Renly's smile flattened, but none opposed aloud. "See it done." Robert rose. "Council is dismissed." As chairs scraped marble, Varys' whisper tickled Ned's ear. "A bold stroke, Lord Stark, yet bold strokes draw bright blood." Ned ignored him, though chill fingers traced his spine. Far across the sea-stone ramparts of Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon received the raven beneath sulphurous gargoyles. He read Robert's summons thrice, jaw clenched. Maester Cresson hovered. "Your Grace," he ventured. Cresson alone dared call Stannis that, for Stannis wore crown only in silence. "Your brother offers the seat long owed." Stannis' thin lips twisted. "He offers because he must, not because he wills. Yet duty is duty." He strode to the balcony where wind lashed salt and spray. Below, the sea of Dorne frothed. "Prepare the fleet. We sail for King's Landing on the morrow." "And the Lady Celis?" asked Cresson. Stannis' gaze drifted eastward, to the slender red woman praying upon the beach, flames dancing in her palms. "She remains." Cresson bowed, though worry etched tottering lines deeper. At Casterly Rock, huge stone lions guarded wind-carved gatehouses. Cersei paced a sunlit hall high above the sea, wearing a gown of crimson velvet. Joffrey lounged upon a cushioned divan, stabbing a dagger into upholstery. "I hate this place," he snarled. "Stinks of salt and goats. I want the throne, my throne." "It will be yours," Cersei soothed, though her hands trembled. She glanced to the door where 2 guards in red and white liveries stood silent. "Grandfather will see justice done." Joffrey drove the dagger deeper. "I'll have Stark's head on a spike and make him watch while Sansa bows." Cersei wrenched the dagger away. Patience. Your grandfather summons bannermen. When the time is ripe, we will ride east with an army glittering like sunrise. Footsteps approached. The door opened for Kevin Lannister. Gray streaked his temples. Resolve shone in his eyes. Cersei, summons from Lord Tywin. You are to attend him in the Hall of Ancestors. She straightened. Now? Now. Joffrey rose with a sneer. I come to. Best you remain, Kevin counseled, but the boy shoved past. They descended spiraling stairs into a vaulted hall lined with marble statues. Lannisters bygone, lions at their feet. Tywin sat upon a dais carved like looming crags, flanked by red cloaks. Cersei curtsied. Joffrey half bowed, eyes darting. Tywin regarded them as a mason studies stone, checking for cracks. At length he spoke. Robert's decree strips you of queenship yet names you Lady of Casterly Rock. He insults this house, but he lives, and the realm still fears stag banners. Cersei's voice cut like silk thread. Father, he intends to bastardize my children. The realm decides legitimacy, Tywin said. Perception outweighs blood. To preserve perception, we will not march against Robert. Yet, we will gather gold, forge new alliances, seed whispers of doubt in every court. When the time comes, the stag will stumble without our blade even lifted. Joffrey scowled. I want action. Tywin's gaze pinned him. Silence, boy. The hall chilled. One day you may rule, but only if the house stands unbowed. Impetuous claws break before ancient stone. Cersei moved to speak. Tywin raised a hand. First, the Westerlands must not appear treasonous. You will write a letter praising Robert's health while lamenting his harsh exile. Send it to every lord. At the same time, we recall debts owed. Money wins wars before sword or shield. Cersei swallowed, fury sparking behind jade eyes, yet she bowed. As you command. Tywin dismissed them with a glance. As they left, Kevin lingered. Brother, he asked, is patience truly your counsel? Tywin's mouth twitched. Patience is a spear thrown in darkness. By the time your foe glimpses its point, it is already in his throat. Back in King's Landing, an autumn gale rattled shutters. Ned climbed the Tower of the Hand's winding stairs and found Renly waiting in the council antechamber. Renly's polished smile cracked. My Lord Stark, may we speak frankly? Ned inclined his head. Renly ushered him inside, closing the door. The realm stirs, Renly said. Brother against brother, lion against stag. We need firm hands to guide Robert. You and I stand apart from those who covet the throne. Let us brandish our influence together. Ned folded arms. To what end? Renly grinned boyishly. To place me upon the throne, of course. I'd make a better king than Dar Stannis, and you know it. The small folk love me. The Reach will raise banners, and Storm's End follows my voice. Offer Northern spears and Riverland loyalties, and we can unseat Stannis before he seats himself. Stannis is heir, Ned said cold. Duty and law name him. Renly's eyes hardened. Law bends beneath necessity, my lord. Recall Robert's rebellion. Law said Rhaegar's son should inherit, yet Robert took the crown. Pragmatism, not parchment, rules the realm. Ned turned toward the hearth, jaw tight. I will not plot treason. Renly's sigh was soft as silk sighing. Then you gift the crown to a man the realm despises. Stannis will rule with iron chisel. Think on what that means. I shall, Ned said, though his heart recoiled. Renly bowed and departed, leaving shadows dancing. Dawn crept over the capital when Stannis' fleet pierced Blackwater Bay, 33 war galleys in disciplined line. Sails bore the crowned stag upon burning heart. Drumbeats echoed across water. Fishing skiffs scattered like minnows. In the bay's mouth, the towering red wine ships, rented by Robert for defense, saluted with banners. At the mud gate, gold cloaks lined docks, halberds glittering. Stannis disembarked first, jaw set, blue cloak snapping. Beside him strode Davos Seaworth, Onion Knight, and Maester Cresson. Onlookers murmured at the red tabard of a single tall woman with hair of living flame. She smiled as if smelling summer roses. Up the sloping city streets marched the procession, past shuttered shops and squat brick inns. Curious eyes peered through cracks. Rumor outraced them. Stannis returns, new heir named, Queen Exiled. By the time they reached the Red Keep, the court was assembled. Robert met his brother in the throne room beneath soaring scrolled metalwork. Between them gaped the Iron Throne, blades reflecting torchlight. Silence thickened until Robert spoke. "Brother, you come when called. For that I thank you." Stannis bowed stiffly. "I serve the realm and our blood." Robert nodded. "I name you Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the 7 kingdoms." A ripple of whispers. Stannis inclined his head but did not smile. "I accept." Then the Red Woman stepped forward, scarlet silk whispering. She lowered her hood, revealing crimson eyes. "I am Melisandre of Ashai, servant of the Lord of Light. I have looked into the flames and seen shadows that would devour this realm. Your Grace," she turned to Robert, "only the chosen king may turn darkness aside. Azor Ahai reborn." Robert stiffened. "Your gods are not mine." Stannis spoke curtly. "Melisandre is my guest and counselor. I trust her counsel, though I do not bow to her god." His eyes flicked toward Renly, who leaned smirking upon a spear. "So long as her counsel serves the realm," Robert said, "she is welcome." Yet unease coiled in listening lords. Ned found Stannis upon the ramparts that night, watching stars flicker. "Lord Stark," Stannis greeted without turning. "Renly plots. I know. A king, if I am to be such, must quell rebellion quickly. Will you stand with me should Renly move?" Ned considered the dark sprawl of rooftops below. "I stand with the realm. I'll not spill blood unless all hope of peace is gone." Stannis' lips compressed. "Peace? Cersei's exile is spark to tinder. Her father hoards gold. Renly covets crown. The Stormlands grumble for spoils promised and withheld. Peace is a dream for children." Ned looked northward, thinking of snow-laden pines. "Dreams may guide men better than swords. We shall see." Stannis departed, cloak swirling. Under candlelit marble, Varys and Littlefinger spoke in murmurs amidst trailing lantern smoke. "The game grows perilous," the eunuch cooed. 3 Baratheon brothers, a lion in brooding silence, and a wolf whose honor might yet slay him. Littlefinger twirled a coin, the silver stag glittering. "Perilous games line my pockets with dragons. I thrive amid chaos." "Beware," Varys whispered. "Chaos is a pit without bottom. Even spiders can fall." Littlefinger smiled. "Then I will build wings." Moonless sky smothered the city when riders cloaked in black left the Stormlands gate, banners hidden. They bore messages sealed with golden roses. Highgarden's call to rally behind Renly. Speed was their ally, secrecy their shield. At the same hour in the Tower of the ND, Ned penned letters to Winterfell warning of gathering storms. He sealed them with gray wax, dire wolf within. Catelyn entered, pale. A raven came from Riverrun. "Your brother writes that hostilities break along the Trident. Raiders wearing lion colors burn villages." Ned's quill paused mid-stroke. "So the lion bears his claws." Over weeks, whispers grew into wind. Merchants spoke of Westerland sells words appearing at the Golden Tooth. Blacksmiths hammered helms painted crimson. In the Riverlands, Ser Gregor Clegane led pillaging rides, declaring he sought outlaws loyal to Eddard Stark. Ned petitioned Robert for justice. The king, torn between friendship and fear of open war, delayed. Inside the walls, tension coiled. Robert practiced swordplay daily, sweat darkening tunic, seeking strength regained. But each raven reporting Lannister raids drew him to drink at dusk. Ned watched despondency creep behind Robert's bravado. One dawn, Robert summoned Ned alone to the Heartwood Grove within the keep. Dew glittered upon grass. The king knelt before a small stone altar, sword laid across knees. "Ned," he said, voice raw, "I feel time clawing me. War looms and I he faltered. I fear I may not bear another wound.
Ned knelt oppe sitt.
You'll not stand alone. The North will march if war comes. Robert's eyes brimmed. Thank you, old friend. He pressed a small dagger into Ned's hands. Its pommel was carved like a stag. Carry this, a token that Baratheon and Stark ride as brothers. Ned closed fingers upon the hilt. I will. He breathed, smelling damp earth and the faint perfume of blossoming orange trees. In that hush, the realm's fate seemed poised upon a knife edge. On the final day of the year's 9th moon, a raven arrived bearing golden ribbon. Tywin's public reply to Robert's edict. It was brief. Let the realm judge whose blood is true. I ride for King's Landing with 10,000 swords to stand witness. Panic rippled through small council. Renly urged preemptive strike. Stannis counseled closing city gates and preparing for siege. Robert ordered musters in the Stormlands and Crownlands, sending riders with royal commands. Ned, in captain's cloak, rode to the city gates and inspected fortifications. Stone crenellations bore fresh mortar. Ballistae stood loaded. Yet, as he watched wagons of grain roll inward, he wondered if provisions would last a siege. That night, snow-white ravens flew from the citadel to herald autumn at last. Summer, longest in living memory, was ended. With the first leaf falls stirring beyond walls, winter's promise edged Ned's thoughts. War in autumn meant famine in spring. The small folk would suffer most. Ned dreamt of wolves howling beneath a red sky. Far north, beyond these southern intrigues, Maester Luwin ushered Bran Stark to his chambers. The boy's legs lay useless. Hodder carried him gently. Bran spoke of a new dream, a winged shadow blanketing a field of dead lions. Luwin scribbled, uneasy. Cold winds rose along the wall, where Lord Commander Jeor Mormont watched ravens scatter. Something moved in haunted forests, older than politics, sharper than swords. But in King's Landing, men deafened themselves to distant howls. They heard only drums of imminent battle, coins clinking in counting rooms, whispers behind brocade fans. Tywin's host reached the western banks of the Trident before first frost. 10,000 marched, but another 5,000 followed days behind. Scouts whispered numbers bigger still. Smiths forced to forge helms day and night, young squires clad in fresh crimson cloaks. River lords gathered their forces likewise. Tully banners flapping blue and red, Freys crossing their bridges reluctantly, Blackwoods marching with ravens circling high. Catelyn's brother Edmure led outriders skirmishing along the Red Fork, testing Lannister columns. Flames rose from farmsteads. Refugees poured east. Ned received each grim raven at dawn, jaw tightening until teeth hurt. Robert convened war council in the tower of the Hand's great chamber. Stannis, Renly, Ned, Barristan, and Lord Commander Janos of the City Watch attended. Maps spread beneath flickering candles. Tywin crosses the Green Fork within a fortnight, Ned stated. If we meet him there, we might break his vanguard. And risk open field against cavalry thrice our number? Stannis countered. Renly smiled thinly. We might entice Lord Tyrell to march north with the Reach's might. A rose to choke the lion, Robert drummed fingers. Tyrell's loyalty lies with my Queen Marjorie's hopes of marriage. In other words, whichever brother sits longest on the throne. He looked to Ned. You know Hoster Tully. Will he ride? He guards the Trident fiercely, Ned answered. He'll fight if provoked. Good, Robert grunted. We hold the Trident, keep Tywin west. Stannis, sail upriver to Maidenpool, cut the lion's supply. Renly, ride for Highgarden, charm Mace Tyrell with tournaments and promises. Ned, stay my hand and coordinate muster. Barristan, drill the city. And tonight we pray. Pray to whom? Stannis murmured. Whichever god listens, Robert answered, gaze distant. Nightfall found Ned upon the ramparts gazing beyond torchlit walls. Footsteps approached. Jaime Lannister stood beside him, moon gleaming on golden hair. Stark, he greeted, voice liquid steel. The city trembles with talk of war. Tell me, Does your honor bend under its weight? Ned kept gaze forward. Honor stiffens spine. Weight lies upon conscience. Jaime laughed softly. Your conscience may cost thousands' lives. What price will you pay when corpses mount higher than walls? Ned turned, eyes ice. And what price will you pay for children fathered upon your sister? Jaime's sword sang half-drawn. Careful, hand. Words can cut. So can truth, Ned said. He walked away, leaving Jaime's blade to reflect lonely moonlight. In the black cells beneath the Red Keep, a single occupant stirred. Sandor Clegane, the Hound, jailed for drunken brawl with gold cloaks. He spat when rats drew near. In darkness, he heard red cloaks marching above. War, he knew, meant work for killers. He grinned, bloody teeth gleaming. Autumn deepened. Stannis galleys sailed north, black silhouettes against gray dawn. Renly departed in fanfare, green banners and rose-wreathed spears. Within King's Landing, grain stores dwindled quicker than predicted. Influx of refugees swelled city beyond capacity. Water became foul. Rumor bred plague. One crisp evening, Ned walked the God's Wood, willows shivering. There, under the heart tree, stood Melisandre. Red silk clung to curves. Ruby at her throat pulsed. Lore, Ned began, but she lifted a hand. I come to offer warning, she said, voice sweet. You are a man of shadows, Eddard Stark, shadowed by duty, by honor, by the cold gods of North. Yet shadows hide things best left unseen. Look into the flames with me. She gestured. A brazier sat nearby, coals glowing. Ned hesitated, but curiosity tugged. Melisandre whispered. Flames leapt high, twisting amber dragons. Within their coils, Ned glimpsed shapes. A stag crowned, antlers ablaze. A lion aflame. A dire wolf howling under snow. And most chilling, a pale figure of ice, eyes blue as frozen moon, stepping through shattered wall. He recoiled. Parlor tricks. Visions, she murmured. The enemy beyond lies not Tywin, but the great other, cold darkness that devours flame. Only Azor Ahai may wield Lightbringer against it. Stannis, Ned asked, half-mock. She smiled. Who else? Ned shook his head, stepping back. I serve the realm, not prophecy. He left her among whispering leaves, yet that night sleep shunned him. Dreams of blue-eyed corpses walking southern roads left him sweating despite the autumn chill. News came swift. Stannis' fleet routed lion galleys off Cape Wrath, seizing grain barges bound for Lannisport. But Lannister outriders crossed the Red Fork, burning Maidenpool granaries. The war had begun without formal declaration. Robert donned armor etched with crowned stag, yet Maester forbade him from campaign until ribs fully knit. Fury warred with frustration. He confined energy to drilling novices in the yard, swinging hammer, bellowing oaths, sweating rivers. Ned oversaw muster. Sellswords hired, Stormlanders arriving, Northmen marching south through Moat Cailin. Letters from Robb Stark reported 3,000 spears crossing the Twins under Walder Frey's dubious hospitality. Relief sparked in Ned's heart. His son proved capable. But Frey's price included promise of betrothal. Ned sighed, penning cautious consent. One night, ravens screeched upon parapets. A black-winged flock descended, each bearing scrolls. Maester Pycelle's hands shook transferring them. Ned cracked the first, oath-breaking at Riverrun.
Sered Mure captured.
Host retreating. Tywin's host numbers 22,000. Marching east. Another letter. Lords Westerling, Crakehall, Lefford ride to join Tywin. The west rouses entire levy. War horns echo across Whispering Wood. Ned carried messages to Robert, who sat upon bed, bottle beside. The king's eyes bloodshot. He read, then hurled parchment across room. Damn that lion. I'll march. You're not healed, Ned insisted. Then I'll die fighting. Better than rotting behind stone. Robert stood, swayed. Send word to Stannis. Strike Tywin's rear. I ride at dawn with every able man. Ned tried reason, but iron flamed in Robert's gaze. The die had been cast. At dawn, horns blared. The king's host, 15,000, half unseasoned, rode out the Lion Gate. Robert led astride Black Stallion, hammer strapped over shoulder. Beside him, Barristan shone in white enameled plate. Ned rode gray Stallion Thunder, Stark banner snapping. Crowds shouted blessings. Children tossed flowers. Mothers wept. Within the Red Keep, Catelyn watched from balcony, heart clenched. The host wound south along Rose Road, banners overlapping. Baratheon Stag, Stark Direwolf, Aaron Falcon. For young Robert Arryn sent token knights, and the fiery heart sigil of Stannis pinned to supply wagons. Dust spiraled behind. That night they camped upon the Kingswood fringe. Fires dotted meadow like fallen stars. Robert walked tense, greeting men by name, trading jests. Ned watched fondly, yet worry gnawed. Ahead lay unknown. Tywin's sword could cleave south or turn north. Renly's diplomacy with Mace Tyrell yielded no answer yet. Stannis' fleet harried coasts but had not struck decisive blow. And winter crept. In his tent, Ned knelt before a small weirwood carving. He prayed for sons, for daughters, for peace that seemed ever distant. Outside, wind hissed through grass. The first battle of the Trident approached, not yet fought yet already echoing in hearts. And somewhere beyond mortal scheming, cold eyes watched southern snows, patient as death. Back in King's Landing, Melisandre stood atop the Tower of the Hand, red robes whipping. She raised arms, ruby flared scarlet. To the east a dull glow lit horizon. Sunrise or something older, deeper. Fire and blood and night. The dawn is coming, she whispered, though whether blessing or warning none but shadows heard. Far north, the wall moaned. Far west, Tywin Lannister sharpened Valyrian steel gaze upon maps, lips curled in grim vow, and riding between forests painted with dying leaves, King Robert Baratheon lifted Warhammer to the crimson sky, shouting words lost to thunder of many hooves. Thus the game quickened, pieces placed, swords drawn, hearts steeled. And in the hush before storm, the realm held breath, unaware that fate's rough hands had only begun to turn the wheel. The campfires east of Brindlewood guttered in crooked constellations, their orange sparks rising to mingle with the cloud-veiled stars. After 5 weary days on the Rose Road, King Robert's host had swollen to near 17,000. Crownlanders drawn by royal summons, trident men fleeing Lannister reavers and eager for vengeance, fresh Stormland levies who still smelled of salt and pine tar. Black banners stitched with the fiery heart of Stannis crackled beside golden barrows of wheat painted upon the shields of Hayford and Rosby. Metal rang through the dark as men sharpened halberds or hammered horseshoe nails by lantern glow. Everywhere came the thud of mallets driving stakes, the bray of mule carts, the ragged notes of a lute half-drowned by distant laughter. Above these mortal murmurs loomed the restless hush of autumn forest, the whisper of leaves turning brittle, the slow moan of a wind that carried rumors of winter. Ned Stark walked the trampled aisles between tent rows with his cloak drawn tight. Wolves, he thought, would scent more war in this place than any human nose could. He passed the cook fires where onions hissed in bacon grease, and where barley stew thickened in black kettles. He kept to himself, acknowledging the occasional salute with a curt nod, until he reached a modest pavilion draped in dun canvas, Robert's command tent. Inside, a brazier spilled brazen heat, and the king bent over a spread of charts, his broad shoulders blotting lamplight. Armorers had spent the day adjusting his brigandine to ease pressure on half-healed ribs, yet Robert wore only quilted doublet now, sweat darkening the blue wool. Beside him, Ser Barristan Selmy traced river routes upon the vellum, while Grand Maester Pycelle hovered, holding a vial of willow bark tea. Robert straightened as Ned entered. "Stark," he rumbled, wiping brow with the back of a scarred hand. "What word from the scouts?" Ned unpinned his gauntlets, laying them gently on a trestle. Lord Stokeworth's riders report Tywin made camp on the western bank of the Green Fork 2 days past. His outriders prowl 10 leagues in every direction, fast, disciplined. No banners revealed save the Lion of Lannister. Barristan's brow furrowed.
No frey callers.
Not yet, Ned said. Walder sits the twins and counts his tolls. He'll wait to see whose coin shines brightest. Robert bared teeth. I'll melt his tollgate over his bloody head if he plays both sides. He pivoted, hammering finger on the map. We hold the east bank here. Knott's Hollow, a low woodland verge. Force Tywin to cross. If the old lion splits his host looking for fords, we punch his vanguard, break it, then we'll onto his center before he can bring full strength. Ned studied the parchment. A sound plan, if our men stand firm. They'll stand, Robert vowed. I've spoken to every company. Their blood's up. Pycelle creaked a step forward. Might his grace drink the tea to dull lingering ache? Pains of the chest often. I feel no ache save the itch to smash Lannister armor. Robert cut him off. Pour it for soft-bellied courtiers, maester. I need a clear head. Pycelle wilted. Ned suppressed a sigh. He knew the king's fervor well. The old fires of the rebellion rekindled. Yet Robert's breath still caught when he laughed too hard. He rubbed at his rib when rising from his seat. War did not forgive half-healed flesh. Let me reconnoiter tomorrow's fields, Ned offered. I'll ride at dawn. Choose ground that favors our spears. You'll ride with me, Robert said. I want your eye upon the lines, and your hammer if it comes to charges. Ned sensed argument would fail. He inclined his head. Very well. Barristan folded the map. Your grace, dawn will come swift. Sleep may serve you better than ink. Robert laughed, rough but genuine. Aye, come morn I'll need strength to bellow at lazy captains. He clapped Barristan's shoulder. Tell the drummers, no food rations until every man can form shield wall in less than 3 breaths. When Ned left the pavilion, he smelled rain upon the west wind. The heat of day had broken, and the first cool tears of autumn pattered on tent cloth. He drew hood over graying hair and made for his own quarters. Catelyn's lamp burned within, soft through the canvas. She poured warm water from a copper kettle and washed travel dust from his hands. You missed supper, she scolded, gentle. Beans and salt pork were tolerable, which in camp might be called sublime. Ned managed a weary smile. I broke bread with worry. She guided him to a stool. Rob's raven came. She handed the rolled parchment. Ned read by flicker of candle. His son crossed Moat Cailin with near 4,000 Northmen. A fortnight behind, Serwyn and Tallheart banners followed. Rob wrote of stout spirits and scarce grain, yet no man shirked. He grows quickly, Catelyn murmured, watching Ned's eyes. I scarcely recognized the boldness in his hand. A boy must become lord before long when war comes, Ned said. He laid the letter over the candle's glow, tracing each word as though it might anchor him. May the gods grant he sees winter's end. She pressed her palm to his cheek. And may they grant the same to you. They sat in silence until wind rattled the tent flap. Beyond, the camp settled. Armor clanked less, laughter faded, horses nickered softly. Ned limned each sound to memory. Before dawn, many of these voices might fall forever silent. Highgarden's massive outer bailey smelled of lemon balm and damp straw after an evening rain. Torches ran along archways, forming rivers of firelight that danced upon the pale stone of the keep. Renly Baratheon stood beneath the portcullis, attired in doublet of viridian silk, gold roses embroidered about the neckline. Beside him, Ser Loras Tyrell bore a standard sprouting from his stirrup, a golden rose on field of green, quartered with the crowned stag of Renly. Lord Mace Tyrell waddled forth to greet them, mustache twitching in faux humility. Brother of the king, my hall is yours, he boomed. Behind him glided Lady Allery, calm as winter pond, and Marjorie with a smile as bright as new-forged steel. Renly dismounted with flourish. Your hospitality is legend, my lord. I pray it matches your wisdom. Mace's eyes flicked to Loras. Wisdom grows in gardens tended with care. Come, walk among my sloping lawns, and we shall discuss how roses and stags might thrive entwined. In the scented moonlit arbor, Renly untied the ribbon of a small purse. King Robert wages war while the lion stalks his own larders, he said, voice hushed. He names Stannis heir. But the realm loves pageantry more than puritanical rule. Imagine a king crowned beneath a vault of fragrant petals, beloved by Reach and Stormlands both. Marjorie touched a blossom. A king who brings prosperity rather than hardship? Exactly. Renly glanced at Loras. Should Highgarden back my claim, we stand unstoppable. Bread feeds armies. Gold buys swords. Roses win hearts. Mace stroked his beard. Roses flourish when seasons favor them. Prove the climate ripe and the gardener shall toil. A dance of words, cautious yet intrigued. Renly produced a rolled parchment marked with soft green wax. Terms: the hands tourney thrice over in prize gold to Highgarden's knights. Full pardon of all Reach debts owed the crown, and marriage to your daughter, seating her as queen. Allery's brow arched. Marjorie's cheeks warmed, but she kept composure. Loras' eyes sparkled. Mace weighed the scroll. We will consult the venerable oaken seats of my council. Your retinue enjoys guest right. No word leaves these hedges. Renly bowed. As he straightened, thunder growled in distant hills, ominous prelude to decisions that might fracture kingdoms. Along the banks of the Green Fork, mud sucked at mailed boots. Tywin Lannister surveyed temporary palisades slotted between siege wagons. His crimson cloak snapped in rising breeze. Helm flaps of his destrier glinted like garnet. Ser Kevin stood to his right. Parchment of supply tallies in hand. Ahead, a screen of pikes ringed the command group while builders hacked down saplings to reinforce barricades. Tywin's gaze crossed the languid river. On the far bank, banner smoke curled where small farmsteads had burned earlier that day. Gray-blue trucks of autumn mist clung low, obscuring enemy numbers. Yet scouts confirmed the Baratheon Stark host bivouacked but 8 miles downstream, beyond a natural ford. We strike before they set footing, Tywin murmured. Kevin nodded. Vanguard prepared. Clegane outriders, 2,000 heavy horse. Your center drives after. Tywin's lips thinned. The king leads in person. Cut the head. The rest scrambles. He spurred his horse along the line, golden lions artfully etched upon polished plate. Wherever he rode, men stared with a mix of devotion and dread. Few commanders embodied inevitability as Tywin did, unshakable, as though carved from some unyielding or... At a makeshift corral, Gregor Clegane towered above stable hands, helm under arm. Tywin halted. Ser Gregor, you lead the first river crossing at dawn. Sweep any scouts east of the ford. Leave none alive to report. The mountain grunted acknowledgement. Eyes dark hollow's blood spattered his pauldrons where a peasant's head had burst earlier. Tywin did not look. Such stains were mere trappings of success in war. That night, fires burned low to prevent detection. Tywin sat in a narrow tent reading a letter delivered by Raven. Cersei's. Father, it began, Joffrey grows impatient for his birthright. Aemon instructs him in bowcraft, yet his mind wanders to crowns and pikes. I fear he will act rashly. She pleaded for decisive action. Tywin's jaw tightened. The boy's rashness could be shaped, harnessed, but never unleashed prematurely. First, Robert must fall. Davos Seaworth stood on the deck of the Black Betha as her prow cut white ribbons across the Bay of Crabs. Slim moon slivers hung above, and the water hissed against hull like whispers. Behind, a flotilla of Stannis ships glided in disciplined stagger, sails reefed to catch the intermittent breeze. The Onion Knight inhaled brine as he joined his liege at the stern. Stannis' gloved hands curled on the rail. Galleys of Gulltown refused us harbor, he said without looking. Aaron's boy lord is swayed by Lannister promises or cowed by fear. Perhaps both, sire, Davos offered. Stannis exhaled hard. Every port shudders at mention of my name, yet they will kneel when Lightbringer flames in my fist. He glanced east, where Melisandre knelt in prayer, crimson silks puddling like fresh blood. Candle bursts flickered before her. Shadows cavorted around mast lines. War is more than steel and prophecy, Davos said softly. wary of her overhearing. "It is bread for your men, salt in their rations, coin on bent backs. We must keep them fed and loyal." Stannis turned his unfathomably blue eyes toward the Onion Knight. "You speak truth. That is why you counsel me." A rare softness softened his voice. "When we take King's Landing, I will see your sons ennobled." Davos bowed his shaggy head, throat thickening. "I ask no more than to serve." A horn blew from the loyal lion, the fleet's rearmost. Davos lifted spyglass. Silhouettes of masts appeared along northern horizon, 3, then 4, perhaps more. Lannister sails? Or merchant hulks? Stannis' command ship altered course to intercept. By dawn, they would know whether the sea itself favored stag or lion. In King's Landing, the Red Keep stirred before sunrise. Sansa Stark pressed palms to balustrade of the Maiden Vault, gazing where Blackwater rush gleamed pewter. Rumors reached even the Lady Solar. Her father rode with the king. Battle loomed. The Queen Mother sent to Casterly Rock was raising wrathful kin. Sansa tried to imagine war, but her mind filled with songs of heroic knights and valiant deeds. She pictured Joffrey, sweet Joffrey, though last she saw him, he left without farewell, exiled with his mother. Sometimes in dreams she still heard his laughter, but waking memory recalled the cold gleam of his eyes. Confusion weighed heavy. Arya had escaped the confines of needlework long ago. Under the tutelage of Syrio Farrell, now quietly reinstated with the king's blessing, she practiced water dancing in shadowed training yards, wooden blade flashing. Gendry, the bull-shouldered apprentice, sparred with her at dusk. Rumor whispered he bore Robert's jaw and black hair, but Arya cared only that his strokes tested her quickness. Catelyn watched both daughters with equal pride and dread. She received ravens each morn, scanning lines for Ned's hand, for Rob's, for Bran's. The lilac ink of Winterfell maesters brought scents of pine and wood smoke. Letters from the south smelled of dust and bloodsteel. One evening, Melisandre requested audience. In the Queen's ballroom, now vacant of its ostrich fan frivolity, she stood amid swirling tapers. "Lady Catelyn," she said, voice low, "the Lord of Light sends visions beyond the wall, cold winds rising. Your husband rides toward earthly battle. Yet an older war stirs, forgotten by most." Catelyn held patience. "The North remembers. We speak of White Walkers in children's tales. Not tales." Ruby glowed on Melisandre's breast. "I saw a dire wolf with eyes like embers guiding a crippled boy across endless snow. If the South drowns in lion blood, who will tend the wall when darkness falls?" Catelyn's breath quickened. "What would you have me do?" "Join faith to purpose. The prince who was promised must unite realms, else all burn or freeze. You hold keys. Devotion of North, honor of Riverlands, love of direwolves. Choose the prince wisely when the flames reveal him." Catelyn stiffened. "My loyalty is to House Stark. And what is House Stark to the darkness beyond?" Melisandre whispered. She glided away, leaving puzzling dread. Branches cracked beneath frozen hooves north of the neck. Robb Stark rode at Column's head, gray direwolf banner snapping. Beside him trotted Grey Wind, fur bristling as though scenting hidden eyes. The young wolf lord studied the pale sky. Still no snow, yet the air bit sharper than last year's autumn. Ser Roderick Castle rode at his right, mustache tipped in frost. "Scouts spied Karstark riders behind," Roderick said. "They catch by nightfall. Our host near 5,000 then." Robb nodded but kept gaze forward. War's weight bent shoulders he once thought broad. At a small village of abandoned crofts, Robb halted for midday meal. He ate oaten bread while Theon Greyjoy regaled Hearthbrand stories of Pike's cliffside holds. But when a barefoot child crept from a collapsed barn, eyes sunken with hunger, Robb gave her half his ration. "Tell your mother the king's host will send grain wagons as soon as we may." Theon scoffed once they rode on. "King's host? You hold no crown yet." Robb stared ahead. "A lord who can't feed folk has no right to crown." Theon's smirk faltered. That night, as men sharpened spear points and oiled mail, A snowy owl landed on Robb's pavilion with a letter bound by black thread. Maester Luwin's hand. Word of Bran's green dreams worsening. Visions of a giant shattered by falling tower. Wolves fighting lions beneath a winged shadow. Robb read thrice, then whispered silent prayer to the old gods. His sword hand hovered over the hilt of Ice's heirloom twin, kept for him by his father. In deepest hour, gray wind rose snarling. Outside tents, beyond watchfires, shapes moved. Not enemy scouts, too silent, and soon melted into tree line. Robb's sentries found no tracks, but the dire wolf paced until dawn, eyes blazing silver, as though something ancient followed beyond mortal comprehension. Back at Brindlewood, Ned woke before first light. Trumpets shrilled, armor tense. Fog lay thick over camp, lanterns glowing like drowned stars. The king donned hammered steel gilded in antler motif and strode among ranks, vigor masking pain. Ser Courtenay Penrose delivered estimate: 16,000 effectives, of which 500 knights and 3,000 light horse. Shield walls formed, pikes angled upward. Thunder of hooves signaled the vanguard's readiness. On opposite bank, through lifting mist, Ned glimpsed standards bright scarlet and gold. Tywin's host formed tiers along a gentle rise, lances bristling, siege towers idle at rear. Between hosts slithered the Green Fork, a river but 20 yards across in drought's wake, yet swift. Robert swung upon his stallion, hammer raised. We hold line at the ford. No man breaks until the drums sound thrice. Ned's own heart hammered. He remembered Whispering Wood, remembered rubies scattering on the trident's mud. Now again 2 rivers might paint history. He found position on a slight knoll with stark spears. Beneath his breastplate, Catelyn's sown favor rested, a strip of Winterfell gray. Across the water, Lannister horns howled, deep and resonant. Timber boards rattled into place over the shallow ford. Ser Gregor led the charge, mail mottled like dried gore, sword heavier than many hammers. He splashed into water, roar echoing. 300 heavy cavalry followed. Autumn sun glanced off swirling steel. Longhorns of Baratheon answered. Robert wheeled to face his troops. Stone and stag, he cracked hammer against shield. Arrows darkened sky from stark longbowmen perched amongst alder trunks. Shafts hissed, biting into bright shields, downing the first ranks. Yet the mountain rode on, swinging blade to cleave arrow shafts midair. Pikemen braced. The impact shook Ned's teeth. Wood snapped, horses screamed. First lines buckled but did not break. Ned's sword flashed, severing a rider's arm. Warm blood sprayed his cheek. Around him, direwolf shields interlocked with crowned stags. Behind, drums boomed thrice. Trumpets sliced morning haze. Robert spurred forward at last, hammer held high, bellowing a challenge to all lions. Barristan followed like a ghost of valor past, white cloak streaming through smoke of burned arrow shafts. Ned fell in at Robert's flank. Chaos thickened. War cries blended with dying shrieks, metal upon metal. Clegane's dreadful laughter boomed as he cut through 3 men in as many breaths. Ned saw the mountain bear down on a knot of young Riverland pikemen, smashing aside hafts, crushing skulls beneath horse hooves. Ned angled thunder toward him, heart pounding. He remembered Sansa's stories of gallant knights. Here was no gallant, only butchery. He charged, parrying a crimson-laced blade, and swung Ice's smaller edge across Clegane's helm. Sparks flew. The mountain reeled, but scarce injured. With an inhuman snarl, he countered. Ned's shield splintered. Pain flared along his forearm. Yet he forced his destrier beneath the mountain's mount, ramming shoulder to chest, sending both horses slewing in muddy water. Soldiers piled round, swords clashing. Ned lost sight of Clegane as tides swept them apart. Robert plunged into enemy press like storm wind, hammer caving cuirasses, antlers glistening with gore. Men fled before him. Somewhere, Tywin's trumpets signaled retreat across makeshift bridge. But the bridge had buckled under cavalry weight. Debris choked midstream. Lannister knights found themselves trapped in swirling eddies, arrows raining from archers on both banks. Yet the battle did not tip wholly. Far left, Clegane rallied a wedge of heavy riders and struck Baratheon flank, hacking through Derry men-at-arms. Dust billowed, mingling with mist as sun climbed. Ned pressed reinforcements to the breach, but gaps yawned where foot broke under iron hooves. Amid clamor, he heard a stag horn louder than drums. Robert signaled withdrawal to reserve ridge. Felt wrong. Retreat when pressing advantage? Yet Ned saw sense. Maintain line. Bleed the lions slowly. Bugles answered. Units pulled back in ordered fashion. Lannister cavalry pursued, blood-mad, but a hidden ditch, dug hurriedly in the night and disguised with reed mats, swallowed their charge. Horses screamed, bodies tumbled. Ned glimpsed Clegane's mount fall, the mountain vaulting instinctively clear. He roared but could not breach the ditch alone. Arrow volley hammered them again. Lannister line staggered. Across river, Tywin signaled again. Horns sounded recall. The lions' first gambit failed. By noon, hostilities lulled. River water ran red. Carrion crows circled, cawing hungrily. Field surgeons dragged wounded to triage tents. Ned's arm wept crimson. Maester stitched flesh while he sat among men groaning for mothers. Robert stalked between rows of wounded, praising courage, promising vengeance. Though victory hung ambiguous, morale swelled. Men had stood against the mountain and lived. That counted. Ned found Robert beside a fallen standard-bearer. The king knelt, wiped sweat and blood from his brow. "First clash and I'm still breathing," he said, half laughing. The ribs held, stark. The men held, Ned corrected gently. "Aye." Robert rose, grim. Yet Tywin lost little, just a probing thrust. Tomorrow he tests another flank, or waits for Freys to close trap behind us. We need bold stroke. Stannis sails north, Ned reminded. But Renly? Robert asked. No raven since he left court. I fear he woos roses while we drown in lion's roar. They walked to Command Ridge. Barristan awaited with prisoners. 3 Lannister sergeants, kneeling in mud. Robert questioned them curtly. All refused to speak. He gestured. Wardens hauled them to rear. "We offer ransom," Barristan suggested. "Soldiers seldom worth more than gold for their captains." Robert grunted. "Ransom buys crossbow bolts later. Keep them for trade if trade there be." He gazed westwards at banners still massed beyond river. "Tonight we feast on courage. Tomorrow we bite deeper." Evening sun dipped behind whispering wood, bleeding vermilion through blackleaf trees. In Tywin's pavilion, Kevin laid casualty sheets at his brother's elbow. 400 horse dead, near 200 foot lost. Tywin's mouth barely twitched. Acceptable. Gregor Clegane nursed a cut across cheekbone. Blood dried to tar. "Give me another 100 horse," he growled, voice like gravel. "I'll break them before dawn." Tywin inclined head. "Not yet. Let them think themselves safe. At first light we feign withdrawal north to Ivy Green Crossing. Robert will follow. There, on open plain, cavalry reigns." He moved pieces upon a carved oak board. Golden lions encircling stag and wolf tokens. "Send ravens to Ser Adam Marbrand. Bid him ride south behind the king, burn supply wagons. Hunger weakens faster than steel." He dismissed them. Alone he traced the board's edges. Every war was numbers and nerve. Robert possessed nerve. Tywin numbers. In days to come, the Golden Lion would show his claws anew. South in Highgarden, bees droned over morning glades as Lord Mace convened private council. Present were Olenna Tyrell, Queen of Thorns, eyes sharp as thistles, Garland, Loras, Allery, and Maester Garrett. Renly's parchment lay open before them. Mace puffed cheeks. Ambitious promises, but storms are fickle. What if Robert crushes the lion tomorrow? Stannis crowns, and we stand traitors.
Olenna sipetea.
And what if Tywin slaughters Robert? We stand bereft of thanks. She tapped fingernail on scroll. Safer to court both, yet commit to none. Loras bristled. Renly would be a beloved king. He speaks the people's tongue. Olenna smirked. He speaks honey. Honey draws flies and rot in equal measure. But honey may sweeten alliances. She flicked Marjorie's chin. Granddaughter, ready your smiles. Your hand may prove more valuable than reach grain if war drags. Marjorie inclined head gracefully. I would be queen to any husband who guards my people. Mace sighed. We wait then. Bleed the raven for further news. Maester, send birds to Bitterbridge, Red Lake, Old Oak. Mobilize levies quietly. Should wind change, we ride. Back on the Bay of Crabs, Dawnlight found Stannis' fleet bearing down upon a Lannister convoy. 8 cogships laden with grain, escorted by 2 galleys. Lord Alistair Florent commanded the hero's call, launching the first volley of scorpion bolts that ripped enemy mainsail. Davos Black Betha cut starboard, grappling 1 grain ship, her crew throwing hooks as Marines clambered over. Battle on deck proved brutal but swift. Merchant sailors surrendered quickly when confronted by professional arms. Stannis ordered holds commandeered, crews pressed. Grain would feed his brother's host, or burn if Robert refused his claim. When the smoke cleared, 3 convoy ships flamed on the horizon, black pillars against pink sky. Stannis watched expressionless. Bread or ashes, he muttered. Melisandre joined him, red hair whipped by wind. Flames have shown me the ford of Red Crossing redder still with stag's blood. But beyond, a sword glows like the dawn, forged for one rightful king. Stannis' stoicism fissured. I will have that sword, and the crown. She smiled, serene. Then trust the fire, my king. Trust and strike when it blazes brightest. The second day on Green Fork dawned bleak with iron clouds. Robert's host stirred sore and hungry. Night ration had been half measure. Barrels of salted cod left by a careless quartermaster rotted. Ned personally inspected stores, frowning at mildew. Before midday, ravens arrived. Marbrand raiders burned half their supply train south of Sow Hill. Oaths filled the air. Robert slammed gauntlet onto cart rail. Without bread we fight on empty bellies. Ned answered. Then we must open the road east to Maidenpool's granaries or drive Tywin back where we can pillage his. Drums of the west began their slow cadence. Across river, Lannister lines shifted north along bank, feigning retreat. Robert's captains clamored. Pursue before they regroup. The king's eyes sparked, bloodlust versus caution. Ned laid gloved hand on Robert's vambrace. It's lure. Hold position. Wait for scouts. Robert bit lip. If we hesitate, he flanks. But wisdom won. Scouts shadowed Lannister march, returning at dusk. Tywin's main had doubled back after 4 miles, dug in at Ivy Green Plain. And behind King's host, Marbrand's riders harried wagons still. Fires in night horizon. Choices narrowed like noose. That night, Ned walked alone beneath soughing pines, sword belt slung, fresh bandage on arm. He paused beside a still pool where moon might have drowned. He knelt, felt cold soil, thought of gods would beyond the wall. Words left lips in hush. O old gods, watch my sons, and grant me foresight. Let me keep oath to king yet spare realm from ruin. Ripples crossed water though no wind blew. In reflection, Ned saw 2 figures stand behind him. He rose swiftly, hand to hilt, but only shadows and trees greeted him. He breathed out, uneasy. Far away at Castle Black, Samwell Tarly approached Lord Commander Mormont with trembling scroll. Ravens from White Tree Outpost had failed return. Ranger patrol sent 2 weeks earlier still missing. Mormont's eyes hardened. An ill-omened boy. Saddle ravens to south. Inform the hand. The wall may soon need Southron steel. Morning's light over the Green Fork glimmered upon frost-rimmed grass. Robert convened final council. Barristan pledged the Kingsguard for frontal defense. Lord Karstark volunteered flanking maneuver across Fisherman's Shallows. King charged Ned to direct center where Direwolf and Stag banners interwove. Before horns sounded, Catelyn's raven arrived, borne by breathless squire. She wrote of prophetic warnings, of Direwolf guiding cripple north and shadows in flames. Ned absorbed lines quickly, tucking letter inside jerkin. He inspected his men's ranks, then unsheathed sword, raising voice. Steel yourselves, my friends. Remember your homesteads, your children yet unlived. The north stands firm. The realm stands firm. Hold line for king and keep alike. Yes, my lord, they roared. Across the field, Tywin's men crashed shields in rhythm. Lannister drums beat rolling thunder. The plain lay wide, dew-slick, soon to drink blood. Robert's army advanced, hoofs churning, pikes glistening. Ned's horse leapt a fallen trunk. Ahead, banners collided like brushstrokes on bloody canvas. War horns screamed. Clouds parted, sun glinting off steel. From vantage near rear, Tywin watched unsmiling, hand clenching reins. The game entered next phase. There could be no stalemate now. Only victory or kingdom in ashes. In the heat of midday carnage, Robert Baratheon met Ser Adam Marbrand's cavalry head-on. Hammer struck lance tip, shattering ashwood. Robert's second swing caved helm and skull. His laughter rang mad with exultation. Yet each exertion tore at fragile rib, breath hitching shorter. Barristan cut through to guard his flank. Ned marshaled infantry, reinforced broken pockets, wove line anew. He saw Gendry among Smith's levy swing heavy mace, denting gilded breastplate. Saw young Lord Hayford fall to spear. Saw Winterfell's archers loose until quivers emptied. Tywin committed reserves late afternoon. 4,000 fresh heavy foot who trudged across churned mud under scarlet banners. Ned's worn left flank buckled. He rallied men, but numbers pressed. As shadows lengthened, horns to south sounded unfamiliar cadence. A column emerged along Forest Road, Stannis Baratheon's vanguard, fiery heart banners illumined by setting sun. 20 war galleys had landed at Maidenpool 2 nights prior. Stannis had force-marched relief north. His spears crashed into Lannister flank with impact of falling keepstone. Surprise rippled. Tywin's lines faltered. Darkness fell before resolution. Battlefield transformed to mazed slaughter where screams guided blades. Torches bobbed like damned souls. By moonrise, trumpets of both hosts called retreat. Each army drew back, torn, bleeding, uncertain who held advantage. Between them, field of corpses steamed under star-strewn sky. In makeshift infirmary banners, Pycelle tended Robert, binding fractured rib anew. Battle had reopened wound. The king waved away laudanum, pain evident in clenched jaw. Did we break them? Ned, slumped on stool, shook head. Neither broke. Stannis arrived timely, else Tywin might have. He coughed, throat raw with smoke. Casualties heavy on both sides. Robert cursed softly. Stannis saved me. Gods help me. I'll hear no more ill of him at court. He closed eyes. Ned rose wearily, stepping outside. Wind carried faint notes of wolves howling from far ridges. Perhaps gray wind singing to unseen brothers. He looked west. Campfires of Lannister host flickered still. Tomorrow would bring new horrors, new choices. He remembered Catelyn's letter, visions of dire wolves and winged shadows. He thought of Bran dreaming of wall ravens stilled. Yet in this river valley, men bled for crowns while older darkness gathered north unheeded. Ned drew cloak tighter. War consumed seasons, but winter cared not for politics. If realms exhausted themselves here, who would stand when cold came? Thunder rumbled distant, though skies were clear. Some said it was the gods. Others, the dragons of Valyria stirring in long sleep. Ned only knew it portended change. He returned to command tent, quill to parchment, wrote orders for fresh trenches, spiked caltrops, and night sentries doubled. But at bottom of the page, he added a single line for his son at Winterfell. Beware the white shadows. Strengthen the wall. He sealed with direwolf wax, whispering, the real war lies ahead. Outside, soldiers' dirge drifted. A low chant rising over funeral pyres, sparks spiraling to blank heavens. The scent of burning men mingled with pine. And the moon hung full and pale, silent witness to folly and fate alike. So ended another day of the Broken Kingdom. Stag and wolf united yet bleeding, lion unconquered though bloodied, rose in bloom but thorns unsheathed. Above them all, winter's breath rustled unseen, promising that even victorious hearts would freeze when snow at last began to fall. The third dawn after the blood-slick clash on the Green Fork crept gray and sullen, casting no warmth on the war-torn valley. Smoke from smoldering pyres drifted over makeshift palisades like mournful banners, dulling every color to ash. Among Robert's tense silence reigned. Exhausted men slept where they had slumped, and even the crows grew sluggish, gorged on the battlefield's bounty. Snow-cold dew beaded Ned Stark's mustache as he paced between litter-strewn rows of pikes. His boots squelched in churned clay laced with 1,000 hoofprints and 1,000 memories of screams that would never quite fade. In the Royal Command Pavilion, Robert lay half upright on a mound of sheepskins, drenched in sour sweat and stubborn fury. Willowbark pallor washed his cheeks, but the king would not admit to agony. He listened while Ned and Barristan Selmy traded grim tallies. 36 banners fallen or captured, a quarter of the camp's provisions burned, 200 mounts slain outright, another 100 crippled. Yet, battered as they were, the men clutched the scrap of victory that Stannis' timely arrival had seemed to grant them, whispering that the gods favored the stag. Whether favor was real or illusion mattered less than belief, Robert knew, and for that alone he thanked his brother aloud, voice roughened to a ragged croak. Stannis bowed with thin-lipped formality, but behind the stoic mask Ned glimpsed steel pride. The younger Baratheon felt the realm easing into his palm, finger by reluctant finger. And in the darkest corner of the pavilion, Melisandre's ember eyes glimmered, as if each casualty fed her secret flames. She said nothing, yet her ruby pulsed in steady syncopation with the king's fat, faltering heart. That afternoon Ned rode the perimeter with Lord Karstark to gauge whether their lines could withstand another hammer blow. Near the shallow ditch where Gregor Clegane's charge had died, they found a solitary helmed corpse propped against a scythed wagon wheel, one of Robert's Stormlanders, sword still clutched in death. Crows had plucked his eyes, yet his lips remained parted in a ghost of defiance. The sight unfurled like a frost inside Ned's chest. Victory meant only that fewer of his friends lay thus, not that the dying had ceased. The real foe, he thought, was not Tywin's iron or Renly's ambition, but the bottomless maw of war itself. An ancient, patient enemy that devoured all allegiances in the end. Word reached them before dusk that Lannister outriders had doubled back to cut the narrow road leading east to Maidenpool. The grain convoy Stannis seized 2 nights prior would keep bellies from growling for 6 days at most, and the lion now prowled between the royal host and any new food. Robert swore a tide of oaths so foul that even graybeard Barristan flushed. "If Tywin thinks hunger will send me crawling," he roared, "he's forgotten the taste of hunger himself. We'll dig roots and chew leather before we bend." Stannis suggested a night assault to break the newly raised blockade, but Ned counseled caution. Tywin expects rashness. Let him wait, uncertain. Meanwhile, we send swift riders north to Ser Brynden Tully. He knows river fords where grain barges can slip unseen. And my son approaches. The north bears meat yet. Robert, grudging, agreed. Ravens flapped into star-growing sky. As they spoke, Bronze's Jon Royce arrived with a ragged band of Vale spearmen. Author of the Stone, Ser Anya Waynwood's gray-plumed nephew, 6 archers sworn to House Hunter. They wore no Arryn falcon, but instead carried a blank banner of dull brown. Their young Lord Paramount remained sickly in the Eyrie, Royce claimed, yet these men marched of their own will when Lannister claws began to rake the riverlands. One more sliver of hope, slender as dawn's first light. West of the Green Fork, Tywin's host coiled like a wounded adder around the hamlet of Ivy Green. Water carts rattled constantly. The Lion Lord burned the corpses of man and horse alike beyond earthen ramparts to ward sickness before autumn warmth could fester into plague. Within his command tent the air smelled of wax and charred wicks. A crimson-silked map of Westeros hung behind the high table, pinholed where garrisons and scouts lay. Fresh pins now marked Stannis' column at the king's flank. A thorn unexpectedly sharp. Kevan Lannister read the latest intercepts. Ravens seized from a slain maester half-cracked signets belonging to Derry and Hayford. Stark's son crosses the neck, half the north at his back. He noted, voice carefully neutral. Tywin's jaw flexed once. Robb Stark is unblooded. Young wolves howl loudest before the hunt. Clegane and Marbrand will ride to sow doubt upon his road. Burn farms, scatter cattle, make the north taste want. Wolves lose teeth when bellies empty. He paused to flick ash from his gauntlet. Meanwhile, we strike the king where he is weakest. His pride. He called for Jaime. The Kingslayer entered clad in burnished half-plate, bruising purpling beneath one eye from the ditch fall. Tywin spoke softly, iron under velvet. You will take 3,000 picked cavalry tonight, circle East Bank by moon's rise, then feint at their rear. Your charge is not victory, only noise and terror. Let Baratheon believe you mean to breach his line. He will ride to meet you. When his hammer swings, withdraw north to lure him from Stark's defenses. Bring him at dawn to Cloverfield Hill. I shall wait there with the main. Jaime's smirk curled. Lure one Baratheon while the other flays his flank? Clever, father. Just pray the wolves don't sniff it first. He bowed low, but his gold-flecked eyes shone with relish. At last a duel worth song. That evening's dusk painted the war-torn plain in bruised violets. Mist boiled from the river and cloaked the earth, muffling hoofbeats as Jaime's column slipped south along willow-lined banks. Campfires on Robert's side burned bright, betraying silhouettes of lords drinking to numb memory. Ned watched them from a small ridge, unease writhing at the base of his throat. He sensed motion in the gloom, a ripple quickly gone. Scouts reported nothing, yet gray wind paced restless loops around the Stark pavilions as though smelling peril on the wind. Within his own tent, Ned unfurled Catelyn's most recent letter. Bran had seen again the winged shadow over a field of dead lions, but now the wing bore a crown of snow and bled light upon the slain. The maester dismissed it as fever fancies, yet Bran had never been a fanciful child. Ned folded parchment slowly, wondering what guidance lay in such ominous riddles. When he emerged, Melisandre waited like a living ember beside the doorway. The shadows grow restless, Lord Stark, she whispered, trailing a finger through the cool night air. Do you feel them stirring? Ned met her gaze with all the frost of winter cliffs. I feel only the lives my decisions risk. The red woman's lips curved. You will soon feel more. The night is long and full of terrors, and some ride on golden steeds under a moonless cloak. She drifted away before Ned could frame reply. Instinct prickled. He ordered added pickets along the southern tree line, then walked to Robert's pavilion. The king had dismissed maester and guards alike, brooding over a cup of watered wine. Ned spoke of vague signs of wolves' unease. Robert harumphed, bloodshot eyes narrowing. Tywin gnaws bone. He'll strike before morning. Good. Better to meet him on a field of my choosing. Ned attempted to slow him, but pride overrode prudence. Soon horns bleated assembly. Armor clanged, captains shouted. Sleep-dazed soldiers fell into ranks by torch glow. Shortly before midnight they marched, torches dampening under mist. Drums held silent. Only the thump of hooves and wheeze of wheelless wagons carrying ladders broke gloom. Ned rode beside Robert at the head of 4,000 mixed cavalry and shock infantry, leaving Stannis behind to hold camp with the wounded and northerners still mustering. The plan, Robert's plan, was to sweep east of their encampment and smash Jaime's incursion before it could threaten supply lines. Yet as they crested a low ridge, they found only emptiness. Marsh grass rippling, frog croaks, moonlight glinting off a single abandoned Lannister pennon nailed to a stake. It fluttered in the breeze like the tail of some mocking serpent. From the north erupted sudden thunder, hooves by the thousands, horns blaring a charge. Jaime had never intended southward feint. He had looped wide, then circled back under river fog to strike Robert's march from the flank. Crimson cavalry burst through alder copses, lances dressed. The royal host scrambled to wheel. Panic choked the air. Robert bellowed hoarse commands, hammer raised. Barristan swung, severing a pass-through rider. sparks flared from steel. Ned felt thunder jolt under him as an arrow glanced his greave. The clash became a whirl of torch flickers and clanging metal, riders slicing through half-formed shield walls. Still, Stark pikemen held where they could, their long ashwood shafts gutting destriers, toppling gold-laced knights into mud. Jaime carved a path toward Robert by uncanny precision. He seemed to know the king's every pivot. Twice Ned intercepted, once trading ringing strokes with Jaime's elegant longsword. In lamplight, the Kingslayer's grin shone fox-like. "You look tired, Lord Stark. Nights too cold for northern bones." Ned countered with a backhand that cracked Jaime's pauldron, but another Lannister spearman crashed between them, forcing separation. Rain began in fine needles, turning earth slick. Horses screamed, broke legs, drowned riders beneath muddied weight. Robert's chest wound tore anew. Blood seeped inside hauberk, sticky heat that left him gasping. Barristan shielded him against 3 knights while Ned rallied a block of Riverland axemen to punch open a corridor westward. Through it, they retreated toward a rocky hummock crowned by 2 stunted chestnut trees. There they planted Stag Banner and Stark Wolf side by side. Torches ringed the knoll. Wounded gathered. Crossbowmen loosed into darkness. Jaime's force encircled but did not press the ring. Dawn's first smear of color tinged far clouds. Horns to the northwest answered. The main Lannister host had moved, precisely as Tywin orchestrated. Thick billows of standard dust rose beyond Cloverfield Hill, where golden battalions now deployed upon open slope. Robert's trap had reversed. He was the boar hemmed by hunters, outnumbered 3-1 beneath a bruising sky. Yet, fate remained fickle. Sabachan flights of crows scattered over the ridgeline as a second warhorn blew from east. Stannis' reserves, alarmed by battle noise, marched double-time despite torn feet and makeshift slings. Behind them trailed gray banners of Karstark and Mormont, whose vanguard had arrived through the night. And driving in from the north, like a storm front of iron spruce, Robb Stark's fresh columns poured down the Causeway Road, gray wind leaping before them. From Tywin's vantage, it seemed the mists birthed new enemies at every heartbeat. Still, he did not yield. He ordered archers forward in dense ranks, loosed volleys to tear at Stannis' uneven line. He pressed Clegane to regroup shattered cavalry for decisive shock at Robert's Knoll. And he committed his personal guard, 1,500, the Red Cloak phalanx, to pin Robb's Green Wolves before they could fully deploy. Chaos spiraled. On Cloverfield Hill, Ned fought shoulder to shoulder with Theon Greyjoy, who had ridden ahead of Robb. They hacked a breach through encircling Sellswords, letting a trickle of battered Stormlanders flee downslope. Robert refused to withdraw. He roared defiance, lips foaming with spittle and red. Jaime, now reunited with half his knights, charged up slope yet again, intent on single combat that would end the war in one stroke. Barristan blocked him, swords flashing like slivers of dawn. The 2 legends collided beneath the chestnut trees, hammer against lily-engraved steel, sparks and blood flying equal. Stannis, meanwhile, advanced uphill under arrow hail. The fiery heart banners bogged before muddy gullies, yet the Baratheon infantry pushed, shields raised. Melisandre strode at their rear, chanting in the guttural tongue of Asshai. When a shaft struck her shoulder, she did not slow, ruby blazing brighter until shaft blackened to cinder and fell away. Robb's Northmen crashed into Lannister flank with youthful fury. Their war cry, "Winterfell," echoed across fields slick with rain. Gray-plated sergeants from House Umber forged wedge around Karstark cavalry to split phalanx ranks. Robb himself, astride chestnut courser Wind's Pride, hewed at shield rims with a long sword forged in Winterfell's cold forges, while gray wind tore panicked footmen to ground. The battle became a wheel of quaking noise and spurting mud. Ned lost track of Robert amid swirling melee. He glimpsed the king only in fragments. A hammer rising to shatter a gilded helm, a stag antler crest canted broken, then gone behind press of bodies. Jaime disengaged from Barristan at last, feigned left, then veered, seeking Robert again. Barristan followed, cloak shredded, cheek gouged. Ned parried a spear, slid in close, sank steel into mail and flesh. His blade snagged on spine. He yanked free, spattering his sleeve with new warmth. Above, storm clouds massed, booming thunder without lightning. Perhaps gods argued as men did below. When midday finally pried sun spears through cloud vault, Cloverfield Hill's grasses looked like rusted carpet. 24 banners lay torn. The stag's standard still flew, but fringes charred, half slick with kingly blood. Ned found Robert slumped by a dead warhorse, one gauntlet pressed to ribs, though still upright as though will alone braced his frame. Jaime Lannister stood not 10 paces distant, helm lost, golden hair clotted dark. His sword tip touched earth, but eyes remained sharp, predatory. Ned stepped between them. "Kingslayer," he called over rasping breath. "Yield. Enough blood for one autumn." Jaime's laugh cracked. "Blood enough when a wolf tells a lion to bend?" He glanced to Robert. "Can you still lift that hammer, your grace? Or shall I unseat you like Ares's corpse?" Robert tried to raise the weapon. Pain racked him. Yet before Jaime could spring, a horn blared. The Lannister horn, sounding retreat. Tywin's reserve lines had broken under combined fury of north and storm. Dust plumes signaled disarray. Jaime cursed, sheathed half-hearted, mounted a riderless stallion, and galloped westward with surviving guard. Robert gave one choking laugh, then collapsed. Ned caught him. The king's weight dragged them both to knees. Blood soaked through Robert's hauberk anew. "Fetch the maester!"
Ned roared.
Barristan knelt, face keening with rare, raw sorrow. Stannis arrived moments later, plate dented, expression iron. Pycelle hurried, pale. He cut away padding, revealing the reopened boar wound, now torn far wider by plate edges. "Still sheared rib," he muttered. Stannis barked for a litter. Soldiers cleared an area. King hauled gently. Rain resumed, washing fresh channels through flattened grass. By late afternoon, Tywin's columns retreated in organized disorder across the river, burning their makeshift bridges behind. Thousands of bodies, lion and stag both, quilted the slopes. Yet by some miracle, Ned lived, Robert breathed, Stannis remained uninjured, and Robb stood, grim with father's blood on borrowed surcoat. Victory, if such a thing existed in war, had come dear, but it had come. Still, Ned sensed only dread of what toll tomorrow would claim. In the Red Keep, whispers of the battle's outcome fluttered like moths in torchlit halls. Catelyn exhaled when Raven ink spelled triumph, but heart froze a new reading of Robert's grave hurt. She sent prayers to the mother and the old gods both, and pressed Sansa's trembling hands until color returned. Arya wept in Sirio's arms, then demanded extra drills so she would be ready should another lion cross her path. Melisandre, returned with Stannis, strode past them hours later with crimson robes immaculate. She paused in gallery of Targaryen skulls to gaze upon Balerian's hollow sockets. "Even dragons die," she murmured, too softly for guards to hear. "But fire rebirths all." Her shadow writhed across the skull's teeth like living charcoal. High atop the eyrie, Boy Lord Robin Arryn coughed upon hearing of Cloverfield. Maester Coleman dabbed his brow with vinegar cloth while Lisa Arryn read the missive thrice, fear warping her narrow face. "The north grows bold," she whispered, "and wolves know the mountain passes." She clutched her son, vowing the Vale would shutter its gates until snow melted men's swords away. Yet not all knights of the Vale shared her dread. Bronze's Yone wrote back that victory proved the lion could bleed. He urged more Ares to send men before a lion recovered roar. Whether those words would pass Lisa's purge remained to be seen. In Highgarden's perfumed labyrinth, Lord Mace declared at last, "Renly shall be king." Olenna rolled her eyes, having nudged him step by subtle step. Loras galloped to gather banners. Marjorie's seamstresses began embroidering a new sigil, a golden stag entwined with golden rose. Before moonset, ravens flew carrying formal declaration. The lords of the Reach recognized Renly Baratheon, by right of acclamation and love of the people, as protector of the realm. War's tapestry grew more tangled than ever. Back upon the green Forkay banks, Robert drifted between fever and clarity. In lucid moments, he gripped Ned's forearm. "If I die," he rasped, "guard my son. No, not Joff. Guard the realm from lions and fools alike." Ned nodded, though dread coiled. Succession still unresolved. Renly's claim now open rebellion. Stannis' right overshadowed by prophecy's dangerous lure. He pressed the king's shoulder, promising to keep realm intact. Outside the healer's tent, Ned faced Stannis beneath stroking drizzle. "Your brother may not wake," he told him. "The crown is mine by law," Stannis finished. Yet his gaze flicked to tent canvas, and for a heartbeat fear hid behind stern facade. "But law alone won't feed folk," Ned said. "Nor will prophecy." Stannis' glare hardened. "I will win both bread and blade, with or without North's blessing." He stalked off, cloaked in smoldering pride. At dusk, Robb entered Ned's tent, eyes bloodshot though unshed tears still clung. Ned pulled him close, mindful of armor edges. They spoke little, yet the quiet carried more than speeches. When Robb left, dawn already stained east pale rose. Tywin's host limped west beyond the tumblestone, burning forage as they went. Inside his traveling pavilion, Jaime delivered final report, armor dented but spirit high. "Another day, father, and I would have reached Robert. His ribs sing louder than war horns." Tywin, though beaten, found grim satisfaction. Robert's wound would not heal in wilderness. Travel to King's Landing would jostle fracture. Infection might do what steel could not. Yet he also recognized new fronts. Renly's rebellion split Stag Alliance. Northern host now 7,000 strong. Winter's promise threatened supplies. He adjusted strategy. Retreat to Harrenhal for winter quarters. Fortify Hearth of the Riverlands. Strangle King's line to eastern ports. "We do not chase," he instructed. "We bleed him by inches. War is not sprint but siege of wills." Jaime nodded, already polishing sword for next dance. 8 nights later, Robert was born in shuttered litter south through Stone Hedge Pass, escorted by 1,000 loyal Stormlanders, stark spears bristling front and rear. Stannis commanded rearguard. Tywin, watching from Harrenhal's ruined tower, allowed them to go, certain the Riverland's desolation would slow them as effectively as any blade. Yet springing from winter's mouth, the world shifted again. A raven reached Tywin with single stark sentence from Casterly Rock. "The Iron Islands have raised their krakens. Pike's black sails raid the western shore. Balon Greyjoy, smelling chaos, struck at Lannister harbors." Tywin swore. Suddenly war faced him on 2 fronts. Gold, no matter how deep, paid only for soldiers who could march one road at a time. In the far north, white ravens departed the citadel, announcing that autumn's tally of days had tipped fully to winter. Old, hard, unforgiving. Snow would come thick, maesters warned, longer than any living memory. Small folk prayed for stores stocked. Highborn counted dwindling harvest wagons. None guessed how cold a winter true could be. Days bled into weeks. Robert endured litter's jostle beneath sedation, drifting in dreamscapes of bells ringing for Lyanna's funeral and boars rutting in crimson fields. In fever, he named Ned his brother, called Jaime coward, cursed Cersei's name till foam flecked lips. Bleary consciousness returned only as the Red Keep's crimson towers pierced dawn haze, bristling above Blackwater's calm. Servants carried him to the maester's timber-scented chamber. Silent sisters trimmed dead flesh around wound, and Pycelle poured pale poppy thrice daily. Rumors trickled through city like chalky water. King dying, king already dead, queen exiled, 2 kings rising, dragons stirring. Panic numberless as fleas gnawed at population swollen with refugees. Ned, named protector of the realm in Robert's fevered decree, convened small council under towering tapestries of conquest. He faced Stannis, Renly, returned in green and crimson finery, Littlefinger's slippery smile, Varys's soft hisses, and a newly arrived representative from the Iron Bank demanding repayment assurances now that Lannister gold wavered. The realm teetered on brink. East, Tyrell host marshaled behind Renly. West, Tywin entrenched at Harrenhal. North, Winter's path blocked roads, sea lanes infested with krakens. And whispering at council edge, Melisandre prophesied comet of red sweeping sky, omen of Azor Ahai. In that crucible Ned felt weight heavier than any blade. He realized the only path to peace lay in truths none wished to speak and alliances no tradition allowed. He would need cunning he had long scorned, and trust woven where daggers lay. Honor alone could not mend a kingdom so fractured. Yet dishonor, he feared, would devour the soul as surely as war devoured bodies. On the first night of winter snow, he climbed to the Godswood balcony, where bare branches etched black across sky shimmering with faint aurora. A pale comet indeed glowed on horizon's rim, red as spilled blood, tail trailing like burning parchment. Ned breathed frost into night and vowed before old gods that he would see his children safe and realm whole, or die in loyal attempt. Far below, waves lapped at cliff and gulls cried a dirge. The wars of the lions and stags might still rage, but colder war loomed beyond those battlements, indifferent to claims and crowns alike. An ancient frost that would swallow all banners unless men learned to stand together. As snowflakes spiraled, laying first white veils upon red ramparts, Ned Stark knew winter had truly come at last.